Well, hello again, everybody. This is John Norris at Trading Perspectives. As always, we have our good friends Sam Clement and Courtney Tross. Y'all say hello.
How's it going?
Hey, John.
Hey, guys. Here it is. Another day, another dollar, another day, another letter from my local Volkswagen dealership asking me to trade in my used vehicle. I'm getting tired of these letters, Sam. It's just, and the thing is, the numbers keep on going down, although they're still pretty good relative to the Blue Book value or what have you.
Yeah.
And it's pretty good considering the amount of mileage I've got on my car. But even so, it's like, what in the world is going on where the dealership is so interested in my 6-year-old used vehicle? It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, they're interested in my 12-year-old used vehicle too. I mean, but then you have the flip side of that. You trade in your vehicle, and what do you have to do?
Buy a new one.
Go buy a new one.
Buy a new one. So, Courtney, we're all driving cars that are a little bit older. Courtney, I don't know exactly how old yours is, but I know that you've driven it for a number of years.
I think it's 6 years old.
Okay, so mine is about 6 years old as well. It's title's in the safe somewhere. I'm not going to tell you where the safe is.
Yeah.
Not that anyone would try to
Don't
break
tell
into
all
my
your
house and steal
secrets,
my
John.
car, steal my title.
I don't need the car. I just need the title to it.
Yeah. But in any event, we're all sitting there, and we're all probably in the same situation. Would love to get a new car if only it made economic sense. And thing is, with these high used car prices, does it make sense, Courtney? I mean, what are you thinking?
Well, I would ask y'all this question. If you were just thinking in general, like assume that you haven't recently looked at what new cars cost, what is kind of the ballpark range of what you think is a reasonable price to pay for a new car?
I mean,
I think I already know the answer, but
I think at this point it's probably over 40,000.
Yeah, I think it's probably about right for sort of a mid-level. You might still be able to get an entry-level car for sub-30s, but I've recently gone online, tried to see. I wouldn't mind upgrading a little bit, getting a slightly bigger car. As you know, I drive the Civic Passat, and Beth drives the convertible Beetle. So when we need to pick up something from Home Depot, we're out of luck. So,
right.
I'm interested in getting a slightly bigger car. So I have gone to websites recently to find out what I can get. And if I want to get into an Atlas or something a little bit bigger or something a little bit step up, it's going to run me close to $50,000, if not a little bit more. So what's the actual answer?
Well, I think you're right. That is about the ballpark range. And looking at numbers from, I believe they had it, from just a few years before the pandemic, the average new vehicle price was around $40,000.
Before the pandemic, as high as 40,000? I find that very hard to believe. Maybe in Courtney Truss's neighborhood.
I'm sorry, John. You're right. It was 48,000 in February. This February.
Yeah, okay.
I'm trying to read my notes as we talk, but average.
I'm watching you.
Yeah, sorry. Before the pandemic, the average new vehicle sold for about $37,000. So it's gone up, over $10,000.
That's a ton.
Well, that's 33+% increase over a relatively short period of time. Welcome to the U.S. economy, I think.
Right.
And, a huge chunk of that was really, during 2020. Production kind of shut down. You couldn't get to the store. All of a sudden, there's shortage of chips and bottlenecks everywhere around the world. So new production slowed to a crawl. Inventories, which typically new car inventories, I'm kind of a nerd. I kind of know this stuff. New car inventories historically run between the 3 and 3.5 million vehicle number. During the worst of the pandemic, we got below 1 million. I mean, very, very much below 1 million.
Yep.
And while we're up a little bit, we're only up to about 1.5, 1.6 million, if memory serves. So we still have an inventory problem in the United States. So we're seeing new car prices go up as a result. And because of that, people are holding on to their cars a little bit longer, meaning that used car prices go up, and it gets all screwed up as prices are going up. The residual value on leases. The original lease, the residual value is much less than where the current price of the car is. So people are just buying the car as opposed to releasing, and it's almost a circular.
Yeah,
thing.
there's millions of cars missing from the roadways that would have been available. If you produce way under the long-term growth rate, to get back to normal, you would have to produce way above it.
Yes.
Otherwise, you are going to constantly have less cars available. And that's kind of what you're seeing across the board. There is millions of cars, I believe over 5 million cars that are quote unquote missing from the roadways right now that would have been there without the pandemic
Well, the
shutdown.
thing is, I mean, today the administration or the EPA announced that they're going to have new tailpipe exhaust requirements for new vehicles
that.
coming out. So, I mean, gee whiz, that means probably a little bit higher cost for those cars. Kind of implying, if intuition serves, that maybe people hold on to their cars a little bit longer moving forward.
I think that's probably the case. I mean, we were unfortunately in the car market last year, and I say that because it was unfortunately because it was kind of a had to and not a want to kind of thing. But there was no cars available. There, I mean, it was this is the one. Hope you like the color because this is the one that you're getting if this is the car you want. And that's probably.
And this is the price you're going to pay for
Yeah,
it.
Yeah.
There was not really much negotiating for it. It was like,
Right.
I hope you like it, or it's going to be a couple more months.
Yeah, I think what's interesting in reading this article from NPR is they note that car dealers or car manufacturers aren't making the cheap cars because of limited resources when it comes to materials like you've alluded to, John.
Well,
or
cheap
even
cars
work.
just have lower margins.
Right.
So, yeah, why they want to make lower margins?
Exactly. So they're investing in the more expensive vehicles, meaning, to your point, Sam, there are less cars on the market that are more reasonably priced,
Yeah.
which then drives up the market for used cars because people are being priced out. I mean, John, to your point, like I would love a Suburban. I'd love to be a Suburban mom, even though I'm pretty sure I would hit every last trash can because those things are massive. But a Suburban costs $86,000 right now. I mean, to me, I'm
Are
like,
you serious?
that's what you
Yeah.
used to buy it. You could buy a house for
$86,000 for that?
$86,000.
Yeah.
Yes. Is that not
all those
insane?
all the massive cars, the new Jeep Wagoneer is over $100,000. Tahoes are 80, 90,000. Trucks are easily 60,
65,
70 plus $1,000.
And the thing is, if you don't have the cash for that, you're going to be financing that at
High
probably
A variable rate.
Probably going to be financing that at 8,
They're-
9, 10%.
Yeah.
And there, I have started to see recently, though, and I don't know what this necessarily signals for the market, but a lot of those teaser rates of 0.9% or no interest or something like that for even
Are
up
they coming
to 5
back? I haven't
years.
seen those in a while.
I've anecdotally started to see them across different manufacturers coming back a little bit.
Well, which manufacturers?
GMC and mostly the domestic one.
So it's going to be real interesting to see what happens as the administration really pushes more and more for everyone to have an EV by a certain time frame. And I mean, how are people in, let's say, the third and fourth quartile in terms of income going to be able to afford those higher priced vehicles just in general? Now, granted, Tesla's brought down the price of their cars and it's kind of a race to the bottom, but they're still more expensive than what the traditional sort of Kia Soul or Honda Civic or some of the other entry-level cars of the past.
I even looked at, I believe it was Nissan. They kept posting this advertisement for, I don't know the name, their real small car, and they advertised it.
Versa?
Maybe, and they were saying, it's in the teens, that you
Or
can get one for the
Sentra.
teens. I go, oh my gosh, like I thought I was in the market, but I wanted to see what you were getting
You
for
get it.
$15,000.
That's what my wife's going to
An
drive.
AM, FM radio.
But you couldn't even get one.
And you got to crank the
Yeah.
windows down.
It was kind of like this is the base, but it has all this other stuff, and it was still well over.
Oh, it's still the
25.
it's still the teasers.
yeah.
15,000 for, but the steering wheel costs
But
an
you have, to,
additional $1,000.
you have to Mr. Flintstone to get it to move, pretty much at that
Yeah.
point.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned Nissan. In 2022, they actually reduced their development of their cheapest cars, which Versa is one of them, Sentra, and the Kicks, which I've never heard of that, and by 78%.
Well, I
So
mean,
they're barely making them.
well, let's think about this. It makes sense, really. If I'm an auto manufacturer, I'm unsure about what new car demand is going to be because of higher interest rates just in general. Also because of sort of government edicts around the world. I'm still producing a lot of fossil fuel cars. Am I going to sit there going, all right, people have to borrow at 10, 12% in order to get my entry-level cars where I don't make a lot of money. I don't think the demand's going to be there. However, this stuff up here on the upper end still seems to be selling okay.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I be making the more expensive, higher margin cars? And that actually, you're seeing U.S. auto manufacturers doing exactly that.
And it's not even just, I mean, there is a lot of overlaps, if it's the cheap car versus the higher margin car, there is a lot of things that probably overlap with those. But even on top of that, it's been the high-end consumers in general that have weathered this across not just vehicles, but you've seen luxury brand companies continue to blow it out of the water. Amex talking about their high-end consumers.
We talked about Louis Vuitton this morning.
Yeah, haven't slowed down at all. So even beyond just focusing on the margins of our high-end car, that's where the demand still is, and that's where the demand, even through inflationary periods, kind of remains. I mean, if you're buying $100,000+ car, there's a better chance that inflation isn't impacting you in the same chance as a person trying to buy that $15,000.
Well, and from what you're telling me, a $100,000 car is not exactly McLaren or
no, you're not getting a Ferrari,
Bugatti or anything like that.
Gosh, I can only imagine how expensive those are now.
I can't even imagine.
Corvettes are going for $200,000+.
Oh, come on!
I swear.
You see, I'm just not a car guy. You all know that. You all know that about me. I'm not a car guy. Cars are A to B with a modicum of style, and I do that perfectly. Just a bare modicum of style. When I was a kid, in high school, guys would have posters of cars. I just never cared about them whatsoever. So when you're throwing around numbers like this at me, $90,000 for a Suburban, I'm going, my goodness, you'd have to have...
My goodness.
My goodness. Well, I say, you'd need to have at least 4 children. And a large bank account. Yeah, you need to have at least 4 children in order to justify having such a vehicle.
Yeah.
But then you probably run over every trash can in town.
Yep. Everyone watch out.
So Courtney, with your basketball team full of children and all that stuff, at what point is it you've got to get rid of what you currently have in order to accommodate what you're going to need? Because you got the 4 kids now, just wait till all of them have their baseball bags, all of them have their lacrosse equipment, all of them have all of it in the car, even your dope smooth ride.
Oh, yeah.
Even that's not going to be enough, I don't think.
Right. Well, I would also say that I was not like a car person necessarily. I didn't have posters of cars.
I tell you, very rare was the teenage girl that I knew that had.
Yeah, I mean,
pictures
maybe
of cars
Jonathan Taylor Thomas at a period of time.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas? You're taller than he is.
I'm not even sure who that is.
Of course you don't know.
He's on Home Improvement.
Yeah, Home Improvement. Yeah. He also was like the
voice
of
guy?
it.
No, not the guy behind the fence. Yeah, that's what you picture. The guy behind the fence.
The dark brown hair.
No, he was the middle son.
Yeah, he was in a ton, like Huckleberry Finn. He was in.
You would recognize his face.
Anyways, no. So I refer to my minivan as my living room on wheels. It is very convenient. The doors open and close automatically. It makes it easy when you're shoving kids in and out of car seats.
Well, that's a good mom.
Yeah.
Shoving them. Pushing
them in. There is
in.
something to be said for not having to open a door or close it.
I can see Courtney get her hand on her daughter's face. And just push
you got to put your body weight. They can fight. They're stronger than they look.
Listen, if they're fighting you that hard, maybe you need to change your strategy, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Seems like a
the
Chinese
person who
finger
hasn't
trap.
had a baby in
The harder
20
you push,
years.
the worse it is.
I've never had a baby, by the way.
A child to care for.
There you go.
All of your children are very far from that stage.
Well, that you never give. You're never finished caring for them in some form or fashion.
That's true. That's
but
true.
yeah, but I mean, you've got that, and then you all have a couple of big cars. Yeah, you have almost the exact opposite problem I have. I mean, we can carry a couple loads of a couple of bags of groceries.
You should call Sam and ask to borrow his truck.
You've got a couple of massive vehicles.
Our cars on average get probably 14 miles a gallon.
Great for long road trips.
What is your car?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I get 13 miles a gallon.
That's so brutal.
Yeah, with a 26-gallon tank.
For the 4 children you want to have, can you fit all of your family in your car?
Yeah,
okay.
My truck has 6 seats.
Oh, that's nice.
So you have like a third row in there?
But the little console can open up if you need it. So it's easily 5, but you can do 6.
And you can sit a child in there.
Sure.
What you will find,
where there's no airbag. And
what you'll find is, okay, what about Hannah's car? Does she have her third row?
Yep, hers has 7 seats.
Okay,
nice. You
will find out once y'all have children, they get to a certain age, that third row is almost a
crucial.
Must.
Yes, it
for
is.
running carpools and all that type of thing.
The second row is the captain's seat, so it makes it a little easier.
Look, you've got captain seats?
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
You see, I'm missing out on stuff.
I know.
I don't see how you get captain seats in that truck of yours.
No, he doesn't.
no.
Hannah does.
I was teasing.
Oh. Of course, I think you're being literal.
So I'm sitting around, I'm taking a look at it. Used car prices are through the roof. Volkswagen's pestering me about selling my car back to them. The problem with it is, as you mentioned, I got to buy something.
Yep.
And it's kind of the same
Or
thing.
do
what
you
happened-
invest in your car and you just fix it? Because fixing it, even if you're paying ridiculous amount, like the
That's where I'm
transmission
at.
or something, it's still cheaper than getting a new car.
That's where I'm at with my truck. It would take a significant amount of expenses. I mean, pretty much totaled for me to say, okay, this does not make
Well,
sense
I
for me
mean,
to fix it.
kind of the more we talk about it, and anything that you hear at Trading Perspectives is just our opinions only and doesn't represent and offer to buy or sell. It kind of makes me feel like that maybe some of those auto supply companies might be doing a pretty good job. That people are holding onto their cars a little bit longer, might be going to O'Reilly's a little bit more frequently, might be going to AutoZone a little bit more frequently. People learning how to fix their stuff.
It's
Thoughts.
the same thing I think you've seen from a lot of the home stores, whether it's paint, I think has been a big focal point, or even just the big box ones. Yeah, people have been spending a lot more money on their houses as well, because it's the same thing. Okay, right now, you're kind of almost stuck in your house if you have a mortgage with a 2-handle on the front of it. I mean, it does not make sense to swap that out unless you have to.
Listen, you're almost stuck in your house if you've got a mortgage with a 5-handle or less.
Yeah.
I mean, truthfully, and we have debated whether or not we need to move out of the house. As you know, we know where we live. We pay the highest millage rates in the state. There's really no reason for that any longer now that we're out of the school system. But in order to get what we would like, and let's say I don't want to add on to my mortgage. I would still have to buy the house at a much higher interest rate, and so my monthly note would go up no matter what I did.
Yeah.
Just a lateral
Just
move,
based off
I
the
would be
interest.
spending a lot more money per month for a lateral move, let alone a little bit of a tick up in what we're hoping for. And so why would I do that?
And how's that any different than cars?
I guess
Not.
it's absolutely not.
It's really not.
Unless you can do without. So, like, if you
I
could...
can't do without a house.
Well,
I
but
don't
you
live
could move in with your
I don't live in
parents.
Portland.
Yeah.
You could move in with your parents.
But
You could do without for a period of time.
it's this.
Are you serious? I'm very blessed that both my parents are still alive, but I cannot imagine at this juncture in my life, turning double nickels in next month, going back and living with my parents. That'd be dreadful.
Well, no arguments.
Although my dad does make a pretty good Bloody Mary, so that's
Yeah, there you go.
Could also be a problem.
I know. John's hungover every morning.
Just two cars on the way
a
in.
little lit,
Well, you know,
Constantly.
blood vessels broken all across my face.
But how's that any different than, if you're using your house, for example? Okay, if I was going to move, this is the kind of house that I have in mind that I'd be willing to move for.
Yeah.
Okay, well, for most people, that idea of the house they would want from 2 years ago to now probably hasn't changed. It's just the cost of affording that house is probably
And the
doubled.
thing about it is sort of like with cars.
It's exactly.
There's not a ton of inventory for houses out there.
Yep.
right.
And so
Supply and demand.
while our new home builders will tell you everything stinks and all that stuff, and it's true, our brokers will tell you that, gee whiz, there's just not a ton of supply out there.
No.
And so that's the reason why housing prices have actually, living where we live, have held in there much better than one would imagine given the increase in interest rates.
Yeah.
Much better. And so we're seeing that same thing with the used cars and cars in general. As a result, the inventories stink and prices remain high.
Okay, so when we're talking about switching back to the car discussion, you mentioned electric vehicles.
EV.
EV.
Yes.
So we've talked about the fact that Tesla's aggressively discounting prices. And supposedly that the electric vehicle prices are down 7.5%. After a quick Google search, what do you think the average price is for an electric vehicle right now?
Well, I mean, that's
at the
kind of a
end of
loaded question. Okay, entry level one is still going to be above where it is for fossil fuels. Entry level is probably in the mid 40s.
I was going to say 50 something.
Okay, 61,000 compared with passenger vehicles and trucks averaging at 49,000. So, according to Kelley Blue Book. My question though is, even if they incentivize people to buy EV vehicles, let's say they give you 10,000
They already do.
Yeah, are so like 7,500?
Is it 7,500? But it's not,
But not
super
all.
easy. Yeah.
Well, and there's a price cap on the vehicles.
It's a
and
price
then
cap on
most-
the vehicles, and it's also an income as well.
Yeah. And so for the people who are, I mean, a majority, if the average is over 60,000, that's already getting close to the cap of the tax credit. I mean, most probably aren't fitting under this tax credit now.
Yeah, so let's say they broaden that and they make it where it's more reasonable where the prices are relatively close. Do we have the infrastructure in place to support 75% of our population having EV vehicles?
I mean, we all know the answer to that. We're not
Just
even
look at
anywhere
California
close.
with a rolling blackout.
Well, that's my thought. It's like if it's an electric vehicle, you need electricity.
Well,
if you already can't supply that to the
I've
population.
done some math. If we get to where we need to in terms of EVs and all that stuff, we're going to have to generate a ridiculously much more electricity. I think it's 30-40%. Did I do the math one time?
Often from on green sources.
Well, and that's the whole deal. Everyone wants renewables. Can we generate an additional, let's just say, increase our electricity production by 20%? Can we do enough of that with wind power, solar power, in an environmentally friendly way?
Without having to mine precious metals.
Yeah, without having to
third
mine
world
precious
countries.
metals and all that stuff. Because all these things, in order to create these windmills, cost a fortune and uses a bunch of materials that we don't really like to mine here in the United States. So that increases our dependence on the remainder of the world, gets us away from energy independence, which we have arguably with fossil fuels. And then, how are we going to do that with that? I don't see how you're going to do that. And people might say hydropower, but you know what hydropower does?
Nuclear is the only realistic answer.
Well, hydropower dams rivers and destroys wetlands, and that's not necessarily environmentally friendly. I don't see how we increase our electrical production without using dead dinosaurs out of the ground.
Yep.
So to get people away from using automobiles which use gasoline, we're going to get them in electric vehicles, and we're going to have to use that much more fossil fuels in order to generate the electricity to charge the cars.
Yep.
So basically what we are talking about is hold on to your car for as long as you can, reinvest in it.
At some point I'm going to have to make a move. As much as it
You
pains
know what, John?
me,
I think you
I'm
need to
gonna
buy
have
the
to do it.
4Runner that you've dreamed about having.
I've dreamed about having a 4Runner.
You said that if you won the lottery, you would go buy a 4Runner.
If I won the lottery, I'd probably buy a 4Runner or something like that. Maybe an Atlas. I would not go buy a McLaren. I wouldn't go buy a Lamborghini.
You get a Suburban,
I
$86,000.
don't know. That's too big a car. I've been driving a sedan my entire life. What am I going to do with a vehicle that big? And I don't need people keying my McLaren when I park it in the village.
Fair enough.
Fair enough? All right. Well, guys, we always love to hear from you all. So if you have any comments or questions, please, by all means, let us know. You can always drop us a line at tradingperspectives@oakworth.com, or you can leave us a review on the podcast outlet of your choice. As always, if you're interested in reading more or hearing more of what we have to say or how we think, you can always go to oakworth.com, take a look underneath the Thought Leadership tab, and find all kinds of exciting information. I didn't mess that up this week.
Woo, good job, John.
I really didn't. All right. Well, guys, y'all have anything else to say on this exciting topic?
That's all I got.
That's it, John.
That's all I've got today, too. Y'all take care.